Hello, today I'm going to be reading chapter 21 of Takeout by Margaret Maron. And also, sorry for the big decline in uploads. Um, I was working on schooling and not gonna lie, I kind of forgot, entirely about my YouTube, schedule of uploading. So, I'm going to upload the last 4 chapters that I missed and should be better because they have made it so we don't have as much work at school per week. So the upload schedule should be a little bit better with that. But chapter 21 by Takeout by nope. Chapter 21 of Takeout by Margaret Maron. The rain continued throughout Tuesday night as a line of thunderheads swept across the city. Roman Termiga fretted about the baby birds in their garden until Sigurd reminded him that birds had been surviving storms since they were pterodactyls. A 200-year-old oak tree in Central Park was shattered by lightning, and heavy winds sent unsecured potted plants and small signs scuttling across sidewalks all over town. At Rockefeller Center, the bright summer annuals in the Channel Gardens had been beaten down, their stems broken, their fragile blossoms bruised and mangled, while the blue hydrangeas, massed at one end, were so waterlogged that their heavy heads touched the pavements. At headquarters that can't speak. At headquarters that Wednesday morning, wet shoes and dripping umbrellas had made walking across the tiled floors as slippery as dancing on ice. Jim Lowry managed to catch himself on a door frame to keep from sprawling when his feet skidded out from under him. But Dinah Urbanska went down before reaching the safety of her desk, unwilling to watch her try to navigate the distance to the coffee urn in their break room. Sam Hentz told her to stay put and filled her mug himself. Tilly, accustomed to his children's spilled milk and juice, spread newspapers and paper towels on the floor. Sigurd emerged carefully from her office with her own empty mug, and Hentz said, "I heard back from Cohn about the rat bait we got from the Delvicho garage. That was quick. Well, he says it's pretty basic chemistry. That particular brand of warfarin contains both a dye and a bittering agent that's supposed to keep children from eating it. According to Cohn, the EPA wants to make it the industry standard, but so far that hasn't happened." Across the room, Detective Gonzalez's head came up. "My sister's 2-year-old found one of those rat baits at the babysitter's. She thought it was candy. They pumped her stomach and kept her hooked up to a heart monitor till they were sure she was going to be all right." "Is she okay now?" asked Urbanska. "So far as we know. She finished first grade last week and seems just fine." "Anyhow," said Hentz, "Cohn says there was no dye and no bittering agent in the stuff that killed those two, so it didn't come out of that package." "Did you give them the pill we got from Charlotte Randolph?" "Yeah, but that's going to take longer, and he may not be able to give us a definite answer. He'll have to send it out to a central lab. He did eliminate Ms. Delvicho's current prescription, though." "That reminds me," Sigurd said. "Did we get a comparison sample of her old pills?" "No. Miss Orlando said they were probably thrown out, remember?" "All the same, just in case those pills weren't thrown out, call George Edwards and ask him to have Ms. Delvicho's doctor fax us a copy of the Coumadin prescription that was written for the first pills. Make sure it's precisely what was prescribed and not a generic or another brand. We really need to know the source of that blood thinner." Before returning to her office, she topped off her coffee and paused at Tilly's desk. "Did you learn anything more about the driver of the car that killed Area Edwards?" Tilly shook his head. The last follow-up report had a witness stating for sure that it was a white male, but no real description. An open box sat on the floor beside his chairs. "Are those Maddie's things?" Sigurd asked. Tilly nodded. Too bad we can't match that car. Too bad we can't match that key he had to a car. I ran his name through DMV. No car registered in his name. His driver's license is still valid, though, and he didn't have any violations other than a couple of parking tickets, which he'd paid. Turning to Lori and Albie, Sigurd said, "Let's backtrack on him some more. Go back and question everyone at that soup kitchen who might have interacted with Mouton, and while you're at it, try that rehab facility he was last in." She glanced down again at the box that held the small items they'd found on Matty Mouton's body or in his grocery cart. Lying on top was that picture from the Overhold woman who'd cuddled him. A picture of Matty and Area Edwards. Once again, she felt a wash of sadness for his wasted life. The picture currently posted on their whiteboard was of a meth head with sunken cheeks and dissipated eyes. Impulsively, she picked up this picture of Matty as a young man, laughing with his cousin, their whole lives before them. Intending to put this picture next to the other, she pulled it from the plastic sleeve and was surprised that instead of one picture, there were actually two similar poses that were stuck together. When she pulled them apart, something fell to the floor next to Tilly's shoe. "Looks like a parking ticket," he said. The printing was crisp and legible and dated the 17th of last December from a garage over on the east side. "Urbanska and I'll go," said Hentz. Sofia Del Vico paused at the foot of the stairs as her housekeeper closed the front door and took off her rain hat. "Back already? Wasn't she at home?" "I didn't go. Before I could get out the door, Laura grabbed my umbrella and snatched your envelope out of my hand. I couldn't stop her." Sophia's lips tightened. "Couldn't or didn't? As soon as that woman said her name yesterday, you should have known she would find a way to go there. She wants to be a singer, too." "More opera? Dear God, is it never to stop?" "I'll bring you an espresso," Orla said, and escaped to the kitchen. "May I help you?" Marion Schmidt's large frame blocked the doorway of number 403. Today, instead of Valkyrie braids, her long blonde hair was tied back at the nape of her neck with a red ribbon, but she seemed as formidable as any Teutonic Valkyrie to the girl who stood there with a hopeful smile. Rain bounced off her open umbrella and splashed on the woman's sandals, which made her take an involuntary step backward. The girl flourished a 6x8 envelope. "I'm here to deliver this to Miss Randolph." "I'll take it," said Marion Schmidt, and held out her hand. "I was told to give it to her myself." "And you are?" "Laura Edwards. Tell her I'm Ms. Delvicho's granddaughter." Randolph's assistant frowned. "Wait here," she said, and closed the door, leaving Laura outside in the pouring rain. A moment or two later, the door opened again. "Come in, Miss Edwards. Let me take your umbrella. You may wipe your feet on this mat." Laura's eyes widened as she took in the chrome and white interior, the spiky light fixtures that gleamed and sparkled overhead, the window wall at the far end. From the outside, number 403 was of the same architectural period as her grandmother's house. But inside? "Oh, wow," Laura exclaimed. "This is totally awesome." "Why, thank you," said the white-haired woman who sat at the grand piano that overlooked the garden where rain beat down on the flowering bushes. She half turned on the bench, which was padded in white leather. I'm Charlotte Randolph. I believe you have something for me." Struck by a sudden and unaccustomed shyness, Laura nodded and walked across the long space to hand over the envelope. Without opening it, Randolph laid it on the gleaming ebony pin- piano top and gestured to a nearby chair. "Your Aria's daughter? Did you know my mother?" she asked eagerly. "Not really. We met when she was still a child. I was sorry to hear of her loss." "She never mentioned you," said Laura. "Why would she? As I said, we only met a time or two when she was a child." "But she knows." The girl shook her head impatiently at her slip of tongue. "But she knew I want to sing on stage. Not opera, of course, but still." Randolph smiled. "But still?" She turned to face the keyboard and her fingers came down strongly on the keys. "Sing for me. Now? Now. What shall I play? And please don't say rap." Rather than make the long drive out to Riverhead, Elaine Albee phoned the Seaview Recovery Center. After much holding and transferring, she was eventually connected to the doctor who had overseen Mattie Mouton's treatment there. But he had not realized that Mattie was dead. "But it doesn't surprise me, Detective. The cure rate for methamphetamine addiction is less than 10%, and the relapse time is usually within 6 months. I'm surprised he lasted this long. He only fell off in December, Doctor." "Really? And it wasn't the meth that killed him. He was poisoned. Is there anyone there who was close to him who might have known if he had any enemies?" "I'm looking at his file now, and all that I'm seeing is that he had a cousin out here in Riverhead who visited him every week, an Aria Edwards. You might ask her." Albie thanked the doctor and hung up. "I didn't see the point of telling him that it was the cousin's death that sent him back to meth," she told Lori. He jingled his car keys. "Got an umbrella?" It was a short drive down to the soup kitchen, and he even found a parking space less than a half a block away. But despite Albie's large umbrella, they were both damp around the edges when they got there. The doors were soon to open for lunch, and workers were busily bringing in trays of food for the steam counter. "Yeah, he was a regular here for a while," said one, "but he didn't talk to anybody I ever saw." "Mattie? Oh, sure," said an older black woman who seemed to be in charge of the kitchen. She wiped sweat from her brow with a dish towel tucked in her waistband. "He was a regular up to a year or so ago when he got clean. I think he had relatives that lived nearby, so he'd stop in occasionally to shoot the breeze, even help out a little if we were short-handed. A real sweetheart. We didn't see him for a while, but then he started coming in again, back in late January, early February, as a client, not a helper. You you really hate to see it, you know. You think they're gonna make it, and then bang." She called to a man carrying a tray of condiments. "Hey, Denny, you knew Mattie back last winter, didn't you?" The stocky white man who'd paused in the doorway looked as if he'd like to deny it. "Yeah? Why?" "These detectives are asking about him." "What do you want to ask?" he asked suspiciously. "I already told you everything I know. But you were friendly, right? Used to talk when you were working here last winter?" "Yeah, we talked, but I ain't seen Mattie since last December." He rested the tray on the back of the chair. "He ever say he had any enemies, someone who might have had it in for him?" "Nah, we weren't that tight. Look, I need to get this tray out there. You want to know about him? Why don't you ask the people that live across from that diner on Vanderbach Street? He said he was related to them." "So what did you think, Marion?" Charlotte Randolph, when Laura Edwards had gone and her assistant had brewed them both a cup of green tea. "She sounded good to me, but I'm no judge. Are you going to take her on? Coach her? Certainly not. In the first place, I'm phasing out the students I have. In the second place, her grandmother would never allow it. I'm surprised that she even let the child bring me that envelope. She looked around. Where did I put it, anyhow? On the piano? Yes, there it is, said Marian. I'll get it. The envelope was sealed. Didn't trust her granddaughter, Charlotte wondered. She slit the top and shook the photo inside onto the glass tabletop. Benny Delvijo, she told Marian, 4 days before he was killed. He certainly was handsome, wasn't he? Oh, yes, she thought. Had he lived, this picture would have been hers from the beginning. He had laughed about her wanting a formal portrait of him. A portrait? Am I so fancy now that I can't just have somebody take a snapshot? I gotta have a portrait? I gave you mine, she'd said, so it's only right I have one of you. Hers had probably been burned the same day Sophia found it. Her cleaning woman had seen a pile of smashed records atop a bin in front of number 409. All of them were yours, she'd told Charlotte. The lab to which Marcus Livingston's secretary had sent Vincent Haas was only a 5-minute walk from the Museum of Modern Art on West 53rd Street, and after letting a technician swab his mouth, he decided to see for himself an example of pictures he had seen only on his computer. The admission fee was a little higher than he'd expected, but he handed over the unfamiliar bills with a growing sense of anticipation. A docent at the information desk directed him to the 4th floor. Upon exiting the elevator, he entered a large hall and started down the nearest side, scanning the names on the placards. Halfway down, he stopped at the one that read Oscar Newman, American, and stepped back to take a good look at untitled number 19. Compared to some of the huge canvases that covered whole walls, it was relatively small, only 2 feet wide by 3 feet tall, and had raw slashes of black and purple across an acid yellow background. By the dates on the placard beside it, Haas realized that it must have been painted about 2 years before his birth, when Leela and Newman were living together. Not a study in serenity. His eyes swept over the abstractions that surrounded him, none of which captured his interest or clamored for a closer look. They left him feeling vaguely disappointed, both in himself and in the art. He had no language for these pictures. His training had been scientific and mathematical, so it wasn't as if he'd expected to feel an electric connection. But his father had stood in front of this canvas, had worked on it, while his biological mother watched from her corner of the loft. Yet, even though he thought he felt nothing as he turned back toward the elevators, something made him stop and look a final time at that grim picture, and wonder at the emotions that must have prompted it. And that is the end of chapter 21, and I will see you in, I'm going to be posting my next video in half an hour, so I will see you then, and as always, have a wonderful rest of your day.